And the acronym is a French acronym. It means the European Council for Nuclear Research. After a year, the Council became an organization, basically like the United Nations, and but we kept the same acronym. And what you see here is actually a very famous picture that was taken the day the construction of the CERN site started. So this is the countryside of Geneva, where now we have all the offices of CERN, and this is really the way they have started. So CERN is an international organization, has 23 member states. They are mostly European, but not only European. For example, is also India. And these 23 member states provide CERN with annual budget that for the 2020, but it doesn't change much over the years. It was 1.2 billion of Swiss francs. And CERN get this money and can use this money to pay the personnel, pay the distributor, the construction of the cover, and so on. And this is more or less equivalent to one cappuccino per European citizen. But CERN doesn't have only member states, it also has non-member states, so it's really, say, a more collaboration. So we have member states that provide CERN with a higher budget, but also non-member states, like for example the United States, that they do not give directly money to CERN, but they indirectly finance the research at CERN. You have to consider that all these non-member states have many laboratories that are funded directly by the government. So all these, the laboratory can contribute to the construction of some component of the detector. So usually when we have this very big detector like Atlas and CMS, not all the components are built at CERN. Usually the different components are shared by different institutes. So each one builds some component and then are shipped to CERN and they are assembled. So they do not give money directly, but indirectly finance the research. So you see that the world is very well covered. So many countries. And it's basically a small town. You have 20,000 people that are collaborating with CERN. That doesn't mean they are all physically present at CERN. On average, 9,000, 8,000, 9,000 people are present on the CERN site. And this is how they are distributed. So we have 2,600 members on staff. We have fellows, dentists, and social postdoc. Then we have students. I also have a slide to mention the opportunity for students. We have external companies that come to serve, to do some maintenance of the detector and the accelerator, the building, and so on. And we also have the user, that are the vast majority of people working at CERN. And this might be based at CERN, but they might also be based at some university. So most of the time, they also fulfill some teaching duties. But for some part of the time, they also do some research at CERN. So they might come to CERN for some period of time. It depends on the contract that they have, but they are not directly paid by CERN. So it's not CERN person. It's like the user, vast majority. And so you see, it's a very small town. You have a fire brigade, a medical center, bank, you have kindergarten, and you also have an hotel that is used to host the students or the user that are having for short period. So, moving to the physics, I just want to summarize, let's say, the main hot topic at the moment. Certainly, it's only a very hot topic at the moment is dark matter. Now, what is dark matter? Well, we still don't know very well what it's made of. But what we know is that when we take a telescope or a radio telescope and we look at the universe, what we see, it's only 5% of the matter that made the universe. It's only 5%. We have not still a clear idea about the 95% of the rest. We know that 27% is made of dark matter and the rest is dark energy. What is dark matter made of? We don't know. There are many theories that predict the existence of dark matter, that can explain the dark matter candidate, but we haven't found any direct evidence of that matter. So that's why it's important. There are many ways of studying that, and one of the ways is to try to produce the direct developments. This is what we're doing at CERN. Right? Colliding particles, dark matter exists at a certain point, we should be able to produce dark matter from pernicious particles. But so far, we don't have any evidence of presence of dark matter through indirect search, direct evidence like the gravitational effects and so on. So dark matter is one of the very hot topic at the moment. Another hot topic is the matter-antimatter symmetry. There are many experiments at the LHC, but also at CERN that do matter-antimatter studies. They study, for example, the anti-hydrogen. They study, for example, the spectroscopy of the anti-hydrogen, the effect of the gravity of the anti-hydrogen, so that we understand better the matter-antimatter symmetry. That might explain why our universe is completely by matter, and there is no antimatter in stable form in our universe. That's something that is completely clear. The mass of the neutrinos. We know the neutrinos have mass, for sure, but we don't know what is the mass of the neutrino yet. We know that it's lower than certain limits, but it's still not clear what's the mass of the neutrino. This is another very important parameter to understand. Of course, the origin of the universe, the first fraction of a second, right after the Big Bang, how the universe evolved, right after the Big Bang. That's also not completely clear. So many open questions. But let's start from the what we know. So very briefly, to summarize, this is the standard manual of particle physics. So this table summarizes the fundamental particles that we know so far. So we have two main families, what we call the quarks, that there are six, two main groups of family, that are grouped in three families, up, down, charge, strange, dot, dot. And then another set of particles that are called electrons, and again grouped in three families, 1, 2, 3. So electron, muon, tau, each one has associated with 3. Now why 6 quarks, why 6 electrons is not clear. Why not 10? Why not 16? Well, theoretically, this is possible, but experimental constraint allows the number of 6. But in principle, the universe can survive only with these 4 particles, because if you consider the stable matter is made of proton and neutron, so the proton and the neutron are made of combination both up and down, and then you have the electrons. So basically, the stable matter that made the universe for the last 10, 12, 13 billion of years, it's only that these 4 particles. The other particles are produced in cosmic rays, or of course in the accelerator, but they are unstable, so they transform the decay into stable particles. So 6 quarks, 6 leptons, and then we have 4 fundamental forces in nature. We have the gravity, we have the strong force that is keeping the quarks together, the weak force responsible for some nuclear decay, and the electromagnetic force responsible for the repulsion between the 2 protons. Now, each of these forces is mediated by what we call the gauge bosons. Okay? Now, the mediator of the electromagnetic force is the photons. The mediators of the strong force are the muons. Then you have the mediator of the weak force, that are the W and Z boson, that were discovered at CERN in 1983. And then there should also be a mediator of the gravity, that is called the graviton. The graviton is not included in this scheme because theoretically the standard model is not able to explain how the gravity behaves at particle levels. Still missing a link between general relativity and the quantum relative dynamics. So the quantum mechanics plus the special relativity. But there are many theories that exist as a graviton, for example, the supersymmetry, SUSY. This is a graviton, so there are many searches at CERN for that. Now, the last missing piece of the standard model was the Higgs that was found in 2012, and the Higgs is the particle associated to the Higgs field. You can see like the gravitational force, and the Higgs field explains why all the particles of the standard model have a mass. So why the electron has a mass, the mu has another mass, and so on. So, okay, but why we need to go beyond this table? Why we need to look for new particle? Well, because none of these particles can explain that matter. So if there is that matter, it should be something new. So that's why we need to go beyond, but to go beyond, we need experiments. And at CERN, we have many, many different kinds of experiments. We have not only the 4 big ones that are on the LHC, that are Atlas, CMS, the 2 ones they discovered in disposal in 2012, LHC and Alice, but we have many other experiments. By the way, this is the path of the LHC that is 27 kilometers. This is the Geneva Lake, this is the Mont Blanc, and here is the main site of CERN, it's the Geneva city. So we don't have only the 4 big experiments, we have many other experiments. We have experiments that study the matter-antimatter asymmetry. Here is the passivity, where we produce anti-hydrogen. We have experiments that study the neutrino, experiments that study the axion, experiments that study rare decays, or experiments that are not even at CERN. For example, AMS is an experiment that was assembled and designed at CERN. The control is at CERN, but is installed on the ISS and is used to study cosmic rays. And there is also an experiment that studies the cloud. So how the flux of particles, for example, from the cosmic ray, can change the behavior of the atmosphere. That's something that we hear by reproducing in this chamber a very similar gas composition like the one of the atmosphere, and then by sending particles toward this chamber, we can understand how the cosmic ray can impact the atmosphere. And there are many others. We don't have time. I don't have time to mention. But the common point is that to run an experiment in an accelerator. Now, an accelerator is a very powerful machine that allows to create physical particles. Right? And so this is a schematic view of an experiment like LHC that can be extended to basically all the circular accelerators. So the LHC, you have one beam of proton going in one direction and another beam going in the opposite direction. They are accelerated through an accelerating cavity. So this is a system that there is a simplistic way, there is an antenna. An antenna generates a radio wave. Now to have the acceleration, we need to synchronize the oscillating frequency of the wave with the rotating frequency of the proton inside the accelerator. Now, it should not be exactly the same frequency. The important thing is that an integer meeting, 10 times 100 times 200 times, and you get at every time the particle cross the region where there is the electromagnetic wave, it can surf the electromagnetic wave, so you can say like a surfer can surf the sea wave, and so it skips this accelerator. But then the particle need to rotate inside the orbit, and to do that, we need to bend the trajectory of the particle. Now, to bend the trajectory of the particle, we need what is called the bending magnets. Now, the bending magnets are simply dipole magnets, so north and south poles, and these are basically the blue pipes that you see when you Google LHC. There are 1,232 of these blue pipes, and these are the magnet that are used to bend the trajectory and drive the particle inside the accelerator. Now, the third component is called focusing magnets. The focusing magnet is made of 4 poles. It's called quadrupole magnet, 2 north and 2 south poles. And the focusing magnet basically works exactly like a focusing lens, and it can focus all the protons inside the beam. Because the problem is that we don't have a single proton going around inside the accelerator, but we have bunches of protons. So bunches that contains more than 100 billion of protons. They have a length of around 30 centimeters and a minimum width of 20 microns. So all these particles inside will start repelling. So without anything that keep the proton squeezed inside the bunches, the proton will start flying away, spreading away. So you need something to keep it squeezed. So you have the accelerating cavity to accelerate, the Fermi magnet to drive the protons inside the ring, and then the focusing magnet, the quadrupole, to focus the beam. There are also corrector magnets with more poles, but these three are the three main component of the circular accelerator. This is the map of all the accelerators that we have at CERN. There are many accelerators. There are small accelerators that are used to provide the protons to all the different experiments. Because I told you we have many experiments, they all need protons. For example, you see here booster. These are also very small, but also very old. This is from the 1970 to 157 meters in circumference. This is the 1959, 628 meters. This is the oldest accelerator that we have in operation. So all these accelerators are used for different experiments, but for a small fraction of their time, they are used also to pre-accelerate the proton for the big ones, that are the SPS 700 and the LHC 2700. So basically, the path of the proton starts from a linear accelerator, then they go to a booster, then they go into the proton synchron, then into the super proton synchron, and finally to the LHC. When they reach the maximum speed, they are colliding before experiment. Now, I also posted here a link to a nice video that show you the path of the proton inside the different accelerator. But if you also want to see them, you can also go on Google Maps. We had Street View on CERN. So you can go on Google Maps, go Street View, and enter inside CERN. And you can also go underground. So you can go see the accelerator, you can see the proton, but also the LHC. And you can also visit the detector. You can just walk around and see the different components of the detector. That's very nice. If you have the possibility of coming at CERN to visit, that's my view. It's very nice. It's like a street view, so it's very, very nice. Okay, but where do we take the protons? Well, this is probably the simplest part of the process. We take the proton from the hydrogen gas. The hydrogen is the most abundant element that we have in the universe. So the proton and electron. So if you remove the electron, you can create a plasma of proton, and this is done by this very small device. It's like this. It's very small. That is called dual plasmatron. That using a filament allow to basically create this plasma of proton that is inserted inside the linear accelerator and start the acceleration, the accelerator charge system. Okay, so I just want to focus a second on the magnet of the LHC, the blue pipe I was mentioning before, because these blue pipes are very, very special, let's say. So this is a section of the magnet. You see there are two pipes, one here and one here. And there are two beams, one going in one direction, the other one going in the other direction. And the proton circulate inside these two pipes. Now, the magnet that we use for the LHC are, of course, not permanent magnets. They are electromagnets, and they use a lot of current. They use 13,000 amps for generating the magnetic field that we need to bend the trajectory of the particles. So they cannot really use standard copper cable because we will need very good cable to power the magnet and this very small magnet. So the magnet of the LHC that you see here, these two half brown, half moon are the electromagnet. They are made of a special material, so they are made of superconductor. The superconductor is a material that in certain condition has a zero electrical resistance. So that means that you can transport very big current, like 30,000 amps, in very, very small cables. And so make a very, very compact magnet. Now the problem of the superconductor is that the material that we use to build the superconductor of the LHC are made of an alloy of niobium and titanium. And the niobium and titanium is superconductor when the temperature reaches 271 degrees below zero, so 1.9 Kelvin. So the magnet of the LHC to work have to be minus 271 degrees. So LHC is a very powerful accelerator, but it's also a very powerful friction. You spend a not small amount of energy to keep almost 27 kilometers at this very low temperature. So what you see here is the two pipes, as I mentioned before, the magnet, the iron joke, the tip of the magnets. Everything here, all this part is filled with the liquid helium that is used to cool down the magnet. Between the helium vessel and the external part, there is an empty space where we make a very high vacuum to simply thermally insulate the container where there are the magnet that has helium from the external part of the channel that is in electric. And so also if you want to have more information about superconductivity, there's also posted a link here. So the magnet, superconductor magnet, and only the one of the LHC. The other magnet that we have are the other accelerator. Let's now move to the detector, because we are accelerating the particle at almost the speed of light, and we cross the protons and we create new particles. Now, what we have to measure in the particle physics detector? Well, we have to measure the fundamental properties of the particles produced. It means that we need to measure the trajectory of all these particles. We need to measure the energy of the particle, understand the charge of the particle, and understand the kind of particle, was an electron, was a muon. So to do that, we have different sub-detectors. Very close to the point where the proton collide, in yellow, the particle, well, they absorb the particle. They are made of very dense material like lead and iron, and by absorbing the particle, they can distribute energy. We have two kinds of calorimeter. We have the electromagnetic calorimeter to measure the energy of electron and photons, and the hadronic calorimeter, the external one, that measures the energy of the atoms. So actually, the calorimeter absorbs all the particles except for two, but one is the neutrino, but okay, neutrino. So it's a very complicated particle to measure. We don't want to directly measure the neutrino atlas. There are dedicated experiments to neutrino measurement. The other particle that escapes the calorimeter is the muon. The muon is a mass that is 200 times bigger than the electrons. So, and so the electron is absorbed while the muon escapes. So that's why we need another detector, is the one in blue, to measure the muon particle. Okay, so tracking system, calorimeter, muon detector. How do we measure the charge? Well, again, we use the magnetic field. We have two magnets, one solenoid that surrounds the tracking system, and one toroid. Eight of these oil that generates toroids, so donuts that surround the calorimeter, they generate a psychomagnetic field. Then what happens? Once you have reconstructed the trajectory of the particle, just looking which side of the detector the particle is bent, you can understand if it was a positive or negative particle. So separate matter from antimatter. And because the size of our particle is very big, we're not talking about the small devices. For 54-meter tank carry took for a weight of 7,000 tons. That is equivalent to the weight of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And this is a person compared to the size of Atlas. This is the Atlas main site because as we are curious, you can find a lot of information there. This is a slice of the Atlas detector to show you more details the different components of Atlas. So you see the tracking system. So it's a silicon detector. You have the electromagnetic calorimeter. You have the hadronic calorimeter. And then you have the new spectrometer. And you see how these different particles are represented. Okay, so we have accelerated this particle, we collide the particles, and we produce a lot of data. Because consider that we collide bunches of particles every 25 in a second. That means that there are 40 millions of bunches that collide every second. We produce a lot of data. Actually, we cannot save all the data that we produce. So we only save less than 5% of the data. But in any case, it's still even if it's less than 5%, it's still a big amount of data. So we need a very powerful infrastructure that allows to process and analyze all the data. Okay, that's the purpose of the LHC, what is called LHC computing grid. So the LHC computing grid is a system that allows to a sort of cloud, let's say, that connects CERN, which is the core, with all the researchers in the university that are working with CERN. Imagine that each institute has a small data center, so they have computers where they have CPUs that is used to process and analyze the data, but also this where we can save all the data that we produce at the LHC. So if you sum up all these computers that are spread all around the world, Europe, of course, in South America, North America, Australia, and so on, you get more than 1 million CPU cores. So this is, let's say, our global supercomputer that allows to process and analyze all the data that are produced by the producers of protein. If you want to have more information, I also posted here the link to the site, but I also posted here there is a link to this. There is a very nice seminar. It's a German Republic, so it's very simple, but that go through the whole step of taking data up to analyzing it. To show you the different steps of the data analysis. So without this infrastructure for data, it would be really impossible. We are talking about the several petabytes of data, and it would be really impossible to process and analyze that directly on a single laptop. So it needs this powerful infrastructure. Okay, but just to mention that CERN is not only fundamental search, that's the main thing that we want to do, but of course, as you can imagine, there are many applications of all the research team do at CERN, it's like daily life, right? So at CERN, there is actually a department that is called knowledge transfer that basically connects the fundamental search that we do at CERN. It's a sort of link between the fundamental search that we do at CERN and the external environment. So there are many applications, say medical applications from medical imaging, but also other therapy, which is the treatment cancer using of particles. Then it's much more efficient than the radiotherapy. And this is something that was developed thanks to all the knowledge that we gained in the last 50 years with the accelerators for this detector. Like the web was from CERN, for example, like trying to find a smart way that's changing data. There is also humanitarian missions, not because we are sending physicists around the world in a humanitarian mission, but because there is collaboration between CERN and UNOSAT, that is a United Nations project that allow, by taking picture from satellite, to rapidly map the surface of the Earth, thanks to also some software that was developed in collaboration with CERN. And this is very important, for example, in case of disaster. When you have a flooding or earthquake, you can, from the satellite, universally understanding error that are more affected by disaster. That's something that is very important, because you need to coordinate something. Okay, and recently there was also a task force against reproduction of primary ventilator, sanitizer, and also we also share part of the computing power for the research that is trying to understand the behavior of the virus and understand better how try to find a treatment with the cure and the vaccine. So there's also this collaboration. It's also yeah. And the last thing that I want to mention is that there are many opportunities for students at CERN. What you see here is actually the picture of the Service Summer Student Program. The Service Summer Student Program is open to students from, let's say, around the bachelor, so university level, second, third year of university. They come to CERN. They spend 2-3 months at CERN, where they attend lectures on Detector, theoretical physics, Accelerator, so on. And they also participate in a project. So they really work with some physicists at CERN. And this is, let's say, the main and famous program. But there are other opportunities, different levels, so from high school up to higher level, like technical student and so on. Just to mention that, for example, there is also a possibility like Beamline for School, that is for high school students. High school students can present some projects or a small detector and so on. If they are selected, usually 2 schools per year, every year are selected, they can come to CERN and do some research for a few weeks. So really using project that produced by Accelerator and so on. That's super, super, super fun. So if you want to have more information about all the student program, just go to this link. But of course, if you go to the main site, career.cern, you can also find all the information about the job. So if you want to apply for some position at CERN, of course, the job position could be seen. Certainly welcome to apply. And yeah, the last slide is just to say thank you, but it is also to provide you with additional links. So the main site of CERN is the one that you can use to find all the information that you need. There are also many other, for example, this nice project is called CERN Open Data that allow you to use the data that we collect at CERN that should be made public, and they are gradually being public. There is also event displays, so the image that you see as a title slide is not an artistic view. There's a real collisions between protons seen in Atlas, put in a graphic way. And we have many of these what we call event displays. So an event is a collision between protons. We have many of these that we show the context, but we are very interested to really try to understand when the proton collide, what they produce. It's very, very, very nice. There's also curiosity about it. So okay, that's all I have. And question. Was everything clear? Something that you want to?
So, is this something amazing thing?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understood that. You're asking how it looks like the hardware collider?
No, how does it sound like when you turn Large Hadron Collider on in during any experiment?
Okay. Well, it's certainly nice. I mean, it's this is the biggest accelerator that we have, the more powerful accelerator we have in the world. So at the moment, so certainly, if you are working on this accelerator experiment like Atlas and CMS, you might have really the chance to find a new particle, a high mass particle that you are looking for. This is basically the only place that can explore some regions of the phase space with a specific mass for particles, because some other detectors, of course, they can go to low mass and so on, different kind of physics. But that's really the only place where you can look for some certain dark matter, for example, form of producing it. So it's certainly very interesting. It's very exciting, yeah.
Also, I have another question that how much energy do we need to operate LHC, or it's depend on experiments?
Well, it's the total for experiment. You see that the main one is coming from the LHC, but the total is 380, 370 megawatts. That, just to give you an idea, is basically equivalent to the energy consumption of the center of Geneva. As I say, a small city. So it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's also due to the fact that we have it's very powerful in terms of margin. We need also a cooling system. So it's like 370 megawatts.
It's my last question. Can you share your experience during your time of work there? Any mind-boggling thing have you ever seen or experienced?
Well, I haven't at least yet experienced anything, let's say, weird. Yeah, so it's I can say, well, of course it depends what you do, because at CERN there are many different kind of opportunities. I mean, I'm a particle physicist, so I'm working in an experiment, and I'm doing data analysis basically. I'm doing data analysis, but I'm also working directly on the detector. So I'm also doing some electronic studies, some tests on the detector, and so on, which is very nice. Of course, being at CERN allow you to discuss everything with a very big community and a very different community, because really you have a person, people from all around the world, which is very stimulating, because you really see a very different culture. And it's a very, very nice. And you are many physicists, and it's super nice. And this is the experience in terms of physics, particle physics, because then you also have engineers. And I think in that case, it's also very, very exciting, because you really, it depends on what you are. If you are a mechanical engineer, civil engineers, communities, you are dealing with this super big detector. You have to maybe project that you need to discuss and understand how you can move. I don't know, you need to basically replace one component of the detector, you need to move another part of the detector that has a weight of several tons. You have just a very empty constrained space. You need to make all the calculations and how you want to move all this stuff. Or civil engineers that just build these tunnels, this service tower for the future. For example, we have done recently some civil engineer awards for Highland Museum. So it's certainly it's not you cannot get bothered. So you always have many different things that you can do. You have many opportunities. So you can work, and then you can change to another, focus on another part of the detector, focus on an analysis. It's very, very active. I don't know if I answer part of your question. So does anybody else has any question? I mean, feel free to, don't really need to write anything in the chat, just feel free to speak.
Okay, so can I ask some question?
Sure.
So it was a privilege to hear such a good lecture from you, and thank you for the talk.
Thank you. Thank you.
my question is, I have asked it, this question other people's too, but my question to you is, as a theoretical, as a particle physicist, which theory supports more, string theory or quantum loop gravity? And as I asked it earlier, many people differs in this position. So, which theory you support more?
You mean what we will find before? What's the most? I mean, we at certain we don't really know at the moment. I mean, there are many theories that we are trying to explore. One is the supersymmetry that it was sort of the most promising. Of course, we cannot study string theory. That's no chance. We really need an accelerator that's probably as a radius of our galaxy. I mean, it's too low level. I mean, that we can really see a string in the galaxy. So we can indirectly see no string theory can predict in terms of final state particles, but we can really see a string like this here muons with much higher energy. So we are basically mainly studying still like the supersymmetry, but still not sure if it's completely ruled out or not. There are still people exploring this part. We were just focusing on what we call prompt physics, because when you expect that when you collide protons, the particle that you produce, like for example the Higgs boson, are very massive. So they are produced and they immediately decay. They basically do not reach the detector. So we were just focusing on those kind of decays. And that's also the design practice. And CMS was basically designed the detector just to do prompt physics. But then there are many theories that say, what about if a new particle are long-lived, which is something that came naturally from the standard model, because the standard model is plenty of long-lived particles. You have the neutrons, you have the muons, so a particle with a lifetime that can allow the particle to cross. So what about if this new particle, for example, the one that belong to the dark sector, have a lifetime that is not small, it's long enough that allow to travel? Well, we had to adapt our detector and our strategy to look for those particles, because until a few years ago, we were completely missing those particles, and we have started looking for those particles. We haven't found any of the particles yet, but this is a field that we haven't completely explored yet. So there is also we were also focusing on high energy, high massive particle, but there are many low mass particles that we haven't explored yet, because the selection system of Atlas was not optimized to do that. So I don't know if it's the string theory, the theory that will describe the new physics that we'll see, but I think that as a particle physicist, I think there is still a lot of room to find new physics already with the tools, so Atlas and CMS, LHCb and PALIS that we have at the moment. But well, let's see, because we have a lot of analysis that need to analyze the data that we take in 2015 and 18. And we have started again, it's called the run 3 with the new data taking. So we will accumulate a lot of data. So I think at the end, in the next few years, we can say a little bit more on Suzy and these additional fields. And maybe we will have some some discovery. Not sure if that's answer your question.
Hello, sir. Can I
Yeah.
ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, sir. Sir, actually, I have a hypothesis type of question that you just discussed about that there is a 3 generation of particle, first generation, second generation, and third generation, and most of the atom or matter we see day to day life, those are actually made out of first generation of particles. So is it possible that Big Bang is actually the changes or the shifted or the generation of the particle? That's mean before the Big Bang, the world or the galaxy is actually made out of second generation of particle, but somehow or the some effect or maybe any changes in Higgs field or anything, that their generation is shifted from second generation to first generation, and that we have actually seen as a Big Bang, and the rest of the energy which are actually spread out when the second generation of particle are come to the first generation of particle, the loss of mass is actually converted in energy, and we maybe detect those energy and can is it possible to find out that this hypothesis is correct, or before the Big Bang or the previous Big Bang, maybe the universe is actually made out of third generation of particle, or maybe before that there is another slab or fifth generation or fourth generation of particle? Is this possible that Big Bang is just a shifting or the low grading of the generation? Is it possible?
Short answer, I'm sorry, I don't know. I mean, if it's possible theoretically, it might be possible. So but the problem is that if it's before the Big Bang, I'm not sure how we can prove what was before the Big Bang. So we still, the LHC, the higher we go with the energy, the closer we are to the Big Bang. So it might be that's, of course, something happened right after the Big Bang. That it's a much higher energy than what we can reach now. And actually, what we think is that, for example, the non-unified theory, so the unification of the three forces that we have, that's something that we haven't proved yet, but we don't know if it exists. But I'm not sure how we can prove that this, demonstrate something that happened before the Big Bang. So you can do theoretically, but I'm not sure how practically in an experiment we could prove that. So it might be, but yeah.
Yes, sir. So, is there any way to find out the possibilities through the CERN, through the Large Hadron Collider? Is this possible to measure out that before the Big Bang, the universe is actually made out of second generation of particle, and they are actually stable in those universe? Is this possible to prove that using the Large Hadron Collider in CERN?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. The problem is that you need to reach the Big Bang, but there's a point with an infinite energy that, of course, is something that you can reach with the LHC. Then if you're talking about before, I don't know how you can say. It's still not clear. It's still very hard to define a point with an infinite energy from which everything else originated. So I don't know. If you assume there is some cyclic Big Bang, Big Crunch, again Big Bang, Big Crunch again, but again I don't know how we can prove experimentally from experimental prediction. We need to go beyond the Big Bang. I don't know. But you need to reach the Big Bang, which you cannot reach because it's impossible energy point of view. So I don't know. I don't know how you can prove that.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other question?